gentlemen and cheapos, to the TokyoCheapo podcast. My name is Greg Lane. I'm your host for today's episode.
You're the infamous Cheapo.
I am still
the infamous.
I still have that title. It hasn't been taken away.
And I'm the notorious Cheapo, Chris Kirklands. And I think you are. I'm gonna anoint you as the alleged Cheapo.
Alleged Cheapo.
Alleged Cheapo. I like that. Okay. And my name is Taryn Siegel. Why alleged? Let's break it down.
Because I'm not sure how much you want the identity of being a cheapo. So you could there's plausible deniability there if you're the alleged cheapo.
You could be a secret
Okay.
cheapo.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yay!
Alleged cheapo.
Finally worked up to it.
Well, let's try it out.
Alleged cheapo. Cool.
So usually in these episodes, what we do is we kind of go around and we tell a few stories about what we've been up to. But today we're going to try something a little bit different. So Taryn's going to tell us a bit of a longer story. At the moment, Chris and I are completely in the dark as to what it's about. So
yeah,
I guess we'll send it over to you and
spill beans.
Yeah, so we'll be mixing it up. So sometimes we'll let one of us take the helm and tell just like a long story if they've got one. And I gotta be honest, this is not a recent story, but it's one that I did want to tell you guys because it's one of my favorite Japanese stories. So, yeah, without further ado.
It's a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night. No, it was not. All right, so this happened when I was working at another publication, which shall remain nameless. But I was looking for an article idea, and it didn't actually go out with this publication anyway, so they're unrelated to the story. I was looking for an interesting article idea that could be like a day in the life. And through that, I kind of fell down this rabbit hole researching weird jobs in Japan, as you do. And I discovered something that you guys might be familiar with, but I think many people outside Japan are not, called the, I'm going to get the name wrong, but the Bennya-san?
Bennya-san.
Bennya-san.
It sounds dodgy already. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But Benny is pink, so...
I don't know if that's what it is.
No, it's not that.
I always thought it was Benrya-san. And it might be Benrya-san.
Okay, Benrya-san. So like Nandemoya-san.
Yes. So do you guys know this job, the Benrya-san?
No.
Okay, good, because it's crazy. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So Benrya-san is not like a thriving industry, but like a solid industry in Japan. Like there's actually several companies doing this. And they basically, they can be as normal and above board or as bizarre. There's like a whole range, but their idea is they fit themselves into like all these various little roles and tasks that they can do for you. So they can do something like very simple, like you're really bad at setting up your computer or something like that. So they'll go over and set up your computer for you. But then it starts getting into interesting territory where maybe you're a woman living alone and you want to make a complaint about some like noise pollution happening in your area, but you have an idea that your landlord won't take you seriously as a woman. They'll pretend to be your husband and call landlord on your behalf.
This sounds very familiar.
So then you start walking into even weirder territory where maybe you want to kind of fill out your wedding party. You know, you don't have a lot of friends to invite. So you start hiring people to be your wedding guests. And then you take a step further and maybe you can hire these people to, and this is not, by the way, hypothetical. It's literally, these are all example jobs that have happened. But you could hire Bennya-san to be a fake boyfriend or a fake husband. So
a big feature of it is basically hiring people to act like they're a certain person.
Totally. That's exactly it at its core.
Is this like, there was a thing on the, kind of blew up a few weeks ago about Conan, like he came to Japan and he had a fake family. And Conan O'Brien?
Okay.
Yeah. So he had a whole family, like a wife.
He hired a fake family when he came here?
From a
really?
Benrya, Japanese family.
I think it was it wasn't probably not a Benrya, but it was a specific service you could actually sign up for to get your own family.
Yeah, I'm sure it's it's within the Benrya-san industry.
Right.
It's crazy. Okay, so that's the overarching industry is the Benrya-san, but I became interested in a very small segment of that industry, which is apologizers.
Oh.
Yeah. So there is a tiny subset of the Benrya-san industry, which are companies devoted to delivering apologies, basically. And I found this one company that does that exclusively. They're very proud of being the only industry that's 100% devoted to apologies. So I called up this company. I got in touch with the guy that runs it, and I wanted to do an interview with him for the purpose of the article. And for reasons that I still don't understand, he suggested we meet in Shizuoka. Even though I learned later that he has an office in Tokyo. And I also obviously work in Tokyo. So one day I went out, I took a 2-hour train down to Shizuoka. For those of you who don't know, it's like a coastal city, 2 hours from Tokyo. I go out there, and he had given me the address that I was meeting him at, but I only realized the night before I didn't really know how to get to that address. So I pinged him for some more details. And his, I don't remember the exact wording of it, but he basically was saying, take this bus and then get off like where there's like an intersection and then turn left down a road and walk down that road for 2 kilometers.
Has this guy not heard of Google Maps or anything?
Well, it was almost just like the area that he was, I don't want to say luring because that sounds really like scary, but luring me into was just so remote and it's just, there was no convenient access anyway.
So it wasn't very Ben-me.
It wasn't very Ben-me, yeah.
Japanese word for convenience.
Yes.
It's Ben-me.
I just remember like as I actually tried to meet him at this place where we were having the interview, I wound up walking through like a tunnel for a full kilometer because it was just so in the middle of nowhere. And I had this moment of like, what the hell am I doing here in the middle of this time? Like, where am I being led and where am I going? And then when I got there, it's literally a shack in the middle of nowhere is where I was to meet this guy.
His kind of killing room or something.
Basically his killing room, yeah. And it was also just like clearly very unused because there's just like, you get to the front door of this little shack and there's like a pile of like twigs and other shit that I remember them, like nettles that I remember getting stuck all over my tights as I tried to climb over this pile of shit to get to the front door. So clearly he hadn't been to this shack in like, I don't know, months.
Oh, no. I mean, was it his shack?
It was his shack. So, and also...
Did you tell someone where you were going before you left? Like, you know,
if you don't hear from back
me...
at my office. Like, okay. I think they might have known. But yeah, it was not very safe overall. And I should also describe this guy. He is very big, scary-looking Japanese guy. Like, he's like, you know, tall, like, heavy, and just has kind of one of those very intense, glaring faces, like resting glare face. Anyway, so we get into the shack, which is smaller than the room we're in now. For those of you listening, it's like, I don't know, 5 meters?
5 by 5 or something.
5 by 5 meters. Yeah. So it's smaller than that was the shack that we were sitting in. So we sit across from one another on these little half couches, and he starts smoking. He's like chain smoking the whole time we're doing the interview. And he describes his company to me and just the business model that he has here. People will contact him via his website and say that they need to issue an apology, but they don't have the confidence to do it effectively themselves, and they want to hire his company to do it on their behalf. So it falls into 2 categories, one which is infinitely more interesting than the other. So the less interesting one is like corporate apologies. So maybe some company like fucked up with some product and the customer's mad and they're like really afraid of how they're going to handle that, and they have like this apology guy come in and handle it for them. But he said that only is a small fraction of their apologies. The vast majority of them are infidelity apologies.
Oh wow.
Uh-huh. So in that client base, the way he describes it, and I have to say, I couldn't fact check any of this, right? He didn't allow me to interview any of his agents. I don't actually know if he was just like a lunatic who was bullshitting to me.
Who'd invited you to the middle of nowhere in Shizuoka.
But the way he tells it, most of them are these infidelity apologies, and they all basically follow a similar formula, wherein a woman, for some reason, only the woman is the guilty party, has cheated on her spouse.
奥様からの夫婦のね、奥さんからの依頼で、旦那さんに浮気がバレました。
And wants to, rectify this, but is afraid the lover is afraid of confronting the spouse.
本当の彼氏謝りに行くの難しいから、彼氏っていうことにして、ちょっと謝りに来てっていう。
So he has his agent come in and impersonate the lover. Yeah, and he chooses these agents very carefully based on their physical appearance and prowess. And the way he described it is that they should be Yakuza type
あ
guys.
と、みんな、スタッフは全員こわもてです。ヤクザみたい。怖い。怖い感じ。私もこわもてじゃないですか。普通の人に見えないじゃないですか。
So he...
So there's a certain sort of objective to this apology to presumably kind of insulate the infidelious wife, I don't know if that's the right word, from kind of, you know, they're not going to kind of get in some sort of battle with the lover.
Yeah, like maybe the lover is like too cowardly or too disengaged at this point to actually be the one to take ownership for it. And also maybe just not... the way he described it, he would say that they basically have like the gift of gab, is the way you might translate what he was saying. Like, I think in Japanese it's like wajutsu.
もちろん話術とか
He just like the ability to speak well. So like that's what he looks for in his agents. But then also they need to look intimidating. They need to look scary. They need to look like Yakuza the guys. Because they're basically just trying to intimidate the husbands into accepting their apology. And they'll find the husband either at work or at home or whatever. They'll get the address from the woman. And they'll basically just do a stakeout until the husband arrives on the scene. And then they'll kind of attack them with their apology. By which I mean, they do like the whole bending down on your knees thing, like onto the floor. But like, even though they're doing that and they're like completely, they're debasing themselves in a certain way with this apology, it's like, actually, they're supposed to be intimidating them and forcing them to accept the apology.
This does seem a bit ass about face because you're getting so the situation is the wife or the woman partner has cheated on the husband. Why are you getting the other party involved? It's like, you know, surely it's between the wife and the husband, you know, and then you've got it almost seems like it's antagonizing the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, in his mind or in the company's mind, it's the cleanest way to end that situation. Like maybe the lover is out of the picture actually, and in order for the situation to just get rectified, there needs to be
some kind of closure or something.
Yeah, some kind of closure where like the lover forces the husband to accept the apology through base intimidation, and then somehow that, I don't know, allows the wife, who's the actual guilty party, I suppose, to move forward in the relationship.
There's a slight technical problem here, though, because surely to find out that your partner is cheating involves some knowledge of what the infidelity is like.
But it's not. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the wife who's like approaching the company in order to rectify this, right?
So what I'm saying is, why doesn't the husband hasn't seen, you know, walked in on them in the act?
That's true.
It's this niche of a niche. It's the niche where the husband hasn't actually found out who the lover is.
Yeah.
But somehow it's come out that there is one.
Yeah, I know. The more you like pull threads here, the more crazy and impossible it all sounds. But if it was all a story that he told me, I can't understand what his motive was.
That's equally interesting.
I know. Because he was just like this, such like a bizarre character. I just, one of the weirdest parts of the interview, and this is towards the end of the interview, was he was, you know, after being really like laissez-faire about this whole concept the whole time, right? He like has no qualms about impersonating the lover and making up this elaborate farce in order to resolve these apologies or whatever. But then he suddenly like very quickly draws a line in the sand.
まあそれ断っちゃったんですけど、断りました。
There's one apology request that I got that I refused.
お医者さんが患者さんの手術をするのに失敗して、他の身内に謝らなきゃならない。家族に謝らなきゃならない。
It was from a doctor who had performed surgery on some child and it went badly and the child died. And the surgeon wanted his agents to apologize to the family on the behalf of the surgeon. And that, for him, like crossed a moral line that like crossed his gray morality into his territory. He just put up his hands and said, I can't do that. And he suddenly, after being like really chill the whole interview, he got very serious and very concerned. And then he starts he's trying to explain to me why this is something that crosses the line for him. So he starts talking directly to me.
例えば、ターリンさん殺しちゃった、死んじゃった。で、ターリンさんのお父さんとお母さんに、私失敗してお医者さんとして謝ってて、できないじゃないですか、それ。許してくれないし。
Using my name, he's like, Taryn, how would it be if I was a doctor and I killed you and you died and then I had to tell your parent and then someone else told your parents?
I don't know, laughing, this sounds kind of quite terrifying.
Yeah, but then the thing is, he says this and he's like, like, how would that be if, I was the one to do this and then I had someone else apologize for you? And then he just starts laughing.
だってターリンさん殺したのはあなたでしょって。手術失敗したんだからって。
After dropping that bomb, he just starts laughing. And then he kind of like stands up and he's like, all right, so do you want like a ride to the bus stop? And I did actually take the ride and he didn't murder me or anything, but yeah.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, I got out of that one.
Did he apologize for the lengthy walk to his place?
He did not.
So no apologies were issued during the interview?
Yeah, that kind of came up in a way because he was running late. And he did apologize for running late. And so, I had asked him at some point, does he have experience being on the other end of this, being in a position where he had this insurmountable issue that he couldn't take ownership for himself, he couldn't apologize for. And he said he has never been in a situation where he's done something more wrong than, like, for example, him being late this morning was what he said. He used that example of, like, he's like, how I apologize for being late today? I was 10 minutes late. That's the extent of the wrongdoing that I've committed in my life. So I've never had to. Yes, I've never had to apologize beyond that.
Never done anything wrong in his life.
Apart from when he dismembers people and is killing them.
Yeah, except for that. But he doesn't apologize for that. Yeah.
Excellent. It's a great story.
Yeah. That was one of my weirdest experiences here by far.
It totally sounds like a Murakami novel or something, right? Like just the job and like, going out into the countryside and like
Yeah.
It's very
commit that to like a short story maybe.
Yeah.
So I've got a theory. Maybe part of the reason of taking you to that location was just to sort of soften you up for the interview. I say this because a cousin of mine is a very successful photographer, and he takes portraits of celebrities, politicians, and he says that you get the best photos when people feel vulnerable. And so how do you make people feel vulnerable? Well, what he does is he turns up at the subject's house and just sort of hangs around and watches them for a day and just kind of gets the sort of sense of who they are and what makes them tick. And eventually at some point he's like, okay, I know how to make this person feel vulnerable. So So he's just like, he's just creeping around their house for a full day with their permission? I wouldn't say creeping around. I mean, he's got, this is his method, and presumably if you hire him, his agent explains what the process is. Yeah. But it kind of makes me realize it's a bit like the another Japanese reference, the Musashi novel, the Samurai. I don't know if you've read it, but I remember like one of his battles is he's sort of saying how the battle has begun kind of when they agreed to have the duel. It's not like at the moment they start the duel. It's the battle's begun like
at the
days
point
in
of agreement.
advance.
Yeah.
And like, he turns up late, he stands in the shadows and he watches the person getting really anxious and frustrated that this guy's late. So it's maybe part of his kind of thing is just to make you kind of slightly on edge, that you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. But then what is he aiming to get out of me by getting me my most vulnerable? Because the idea is it should be the opposite dynamic, right? So like I'm the interviewer trying to get like
doesn't really work.
Maybe he did have like an end game that we just weren't able to see to fruition. I don't know, for his own purposes.
Anyway, a mysterious story.
Yeah, very mysterious, and only got more mysterious afterwards because when I tried to contact him for. At the time, he had said he had been very specific with, I have 200 agents throughout Japan. I have a lot of people you could talk to. And then when I tried to follow up, he just became like kind of cagier and cagier. Right. And I said, like, can you just give me anyone's contact? And can I get in touch with anyone? He's like, well, I have 200 agents. You want all of them? Of course, I don't want all 200 contacts. And I was like, no, just like one or two. And he's like, and he responded within a couple minutes and he says, they won't be paid for this. So they said no. It's like, I'm pretty sure you didn't check with all 200 agents in the last 2 minutes. So, yeah, he obviously was keeping some stuff close to the chest that I didn't really get a chance to parse. Yeah.
Multiply mysterious.
Yeah.
Good story.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to our interview with BJ right now. So let's go.
So I'll take a quick break and then bring him on.
Yes, let's do that. Okay, welcome BJ Fox to the TokyoCheapo podcast.
Great to be here.
Really?
Yeah. Nice. YouTube Space Tokyo, looking out at the wonderful view of Tokyo.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with that kind of perennial question. So what brought you to Tokyo?
The short version, it would be in 2015, I was working in Singapore and my company transferred me here. The longer version would be, way back when I did the JET program when I was a young man. Oh, cool. So it's kind of been a long time coming. But I left JET. I did JET between 2003, 2005, and then it was essentially a 10-year gap.
Right.
Then got transferred here.
So this is your second chapter.
Yeah, second one.
Was that your first trip to Japan? Was the JET program?
No, I did my first ever time to come to Japan was when I was 17, and my school in West London, well actually Slough, if anyone actually knows what Slough is, had an arrangement, like a sister school arrangement with a Japanese school.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, after I finished my A-levels, I did a 3-week homestay.
Cool.
And it blew my mind.
Why?
Looking back, it was because I don't think I'd ever really been abroad before. Like, this is before the internet. I'm not that old, but old enough. But when my holidays when I was growing up were to Ireland. My mum's Irish. We'd just go to Ireland for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. I think I'd been to France for a weekend once. And back in the day, if you're British, you're not necessarily thinking going overseas. So to go to Japan, I was a big video game fan as well.
So this is like mid-90s, I guess?
97.
Do you think, it's kind of hard to look at the different perspectives, but do you think Japan is was a bit more mysterious back then? Because you didn't have anything on the internet or...
Yeah, there was no YouTube.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I think photos in kind of encyclopedias.
Well, I think I often compare to. So when I was on JET, 2003, 2005, it was still like I had a laptop, I had broadband. There was no Netflix. There was no. If you wanted, when I would come up to Tokyo, one of the things I used to like to go was Tower Records just to read a magazine.
Right. Yeah.
In my school office, I had to apply to use the one computer with the internet and explain why I wanted to use it.
Wow.
Which, the reason was checking the football scores. But, I had to
You put
check.
that in as the reason?
No, I can't remember what I used to do, but everyone knew that. I think everyone by the end knew the game.
Yeah.
Like on a Thursday at 3:00, I'd always check.
It's understood.
But, I think I look back, and because of that, when I was there, I got into Japanese TV, I got into Japanese music. My Japanese ability kind of picked up a pace quite quickly.
Cool.
This time, all my friends are Western. I don't ever turn Japanese TV on. I watch Netflix. I don't, not only do I don't watch the J-League, I can watch English football live online.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if I was in the same position, even if I was in the countryside now, would I'd probably just be watching Game of Thrones.
Right? Yeah.
So in that sense, it was a good timing to go.
Cool.
So obviously you were pretty drawn to Japan because you did the little exchange program and then you came back for JET. So what drew you to Japan? What was so great about it?
Well, actually, that exchange program, that wasn't necessarily Japan. That was just me being asked to go. But I don't know. I really don't know what the real answer is, because when I looked at JET, I was actually trying to do everything not to come to Japan. The reason I did JET was because I couldn't find another job, and I'd applied. A lot of friends had applied, and I got that. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So it's always, it sounds incredibly negative. It's like a fallback option. But there is something about living here and the opportunities, and certainly when I was in Singapore in 2015, I'd been in Singapore for 5 years, and I was kind of pulled to be going there was a lot of pressure to go back home to London or to the head office in London. And before this opportunity, I knew I was leaving Singapore. 5 years in Singapore was a long time. But when Japan was raised, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. Like the idea of coming back to Tokyo, speaking Japanese. I never lived in Tokyo before. I never had. It sounds a bit weird. I never had money in Japan before either. Like you're on jet, it's fine. Like you're paid, but you're living in the middle of nowhere. And you don't know what money is. And, I guess I was looking forward to the job aspect of it, though. I've been doing like a Pan-Asian role, and I was working in video games, so a lot of the work we were doing was in Japan anyway.
Right. Oh, okay.
So even when I was in Singapore, I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe even on a monthly basis, I was here on a business trip.
Sorry, could you say what was the company you were
I was working for Rockstar Games.
Okay, so you're working for a video game company.
Yeah, so the main project I was working on was Grand Theft Auto 5.
Cool.
So Grand Theft Auto 5, and that came out in 2013.
So what was your role with the video game company?
I was head of marketing for Asia.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's impressive. How did you work up to that or get into that?
So I did Jet for 2 years, and I desperately wanted to stay for the third year.
Really?
You did?
I did Jet,
Jet
for 2 years.
Great. And then there's a real pull, but then there's also to stay for the third year because it's so easy and you're having such a good time. But I also knew that it wasn't necessarily going anywhere. Yeah, I just kind of, and one of my good friends went home, and I just thought, if I stay for the third year, will I ever go home? That's what I was worried about. So I went home and I looked for a few jobs. Then I just applied. I was really trying to get into sports marketing. That's what I wanted to do. I love football, soccer. I was trying to get into that. And I got a job for a gambling company, bookmakers, and I realised that's not what I wanted to do.
Which one?
Ladbrokes.
Ladbrokes, oh yes.
So I was in there.
There's a Ladbrokes in every corner in the UK.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. It was just when internet gambling was taken off. And,
so it's like sports gambling, right? You're betting on the games.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of the industry, isn't it? Of the sports industry in the UK.
Every advert on a football programme would be gambling now, and almost all of the shirt sponsors would be
so crazy,
and and it's illegal. If you're a player, it's illegal to gamble. So there's a weird kind of inconsistency there.
Wait, if you're a player,
you're not allowed to gamble,
but viewers
are. But then what happens is that the players do gamble, and every now and they get there's a whole essentially we're promoting addiction, and there's weird moments recently where one of the presenters of the show, who has a well-acknowledged alcohol and gambling problem, is being forced to appear in a gambling advert.
Oh my god!
And there's a lot of moral things. So anyway, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
I can understand that.
So I was still had my CV out there, and I just got a call one day from a recruiter who said, "There's a Japanese company looking for someone. Would you be interested? I saw on your CV that you lived in Japan," and I was freely writing fluent in Japanese in my CV at the time.
As we all do.
And really good at PowerPoint as well, which I had no idea what that was at the time, but I just knew that's what you needed. And the company was Pokémon. So Pokémon had just, it was post-Pokémon, big Pokémon boom.
Okay.
And they had an office in US, a small office in London, and they were just looking for a coordinator type position.
That's sick. Were you into Pokemon?
Yeah, I was into video games. I had played the first Pokemon when I was in university. And this is an interesting story. One of the reasons I got the job was in the interview, they asked everyone what their favourite Pokemon was.
Really? Of course
that was a standard question.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know how, I'll freestyle some numbers, 25 people, I was the only one who hadn't said Pikachu.
Really?
I was the only one who didn't say Pikachu.
That's so weird that they would not come up with a more creative Pokemon.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily do it because I was trying to be different and stand out. It's because even though I wasn't necessarily a big Pokemon fan, I was a big fan of a video game called Smash Brothers, where all the Nintendo characters battle, and in that game...
Did you say Jigglypuff then?
I said Jigglypuff. Actually, not even now, because I was playing the Japanese version, I said Puddin, and they were like, so not only do you know lots of Pokemon, you know them in Japanese, and I didn't necessarily know that was a Japanese name, I just knew that was the name of the character.
That probably impressed them.
And then the other thing was, then when we got to the final round, and they gave us... So back in it was before Nintendo DS, it was... they gave us a Game Boy SP, which is the clamshell version. So Game Boy Advance, but it was so, and if we're talking Pokemon, it's Ruby Sapphire, that generation. And we had a week to play the game, and apparently everyone else played a few hours. I smashed that game. I came back, I was
is that a test for this job?
Yeah, it was
That's so cool.
I don't know if it was a test, but I think it was maybe a test of level of interest and motivation.
Yeah.
And so then I started working there, not on the video games so much, but more on the trading cards and the licensing, the kind of I would go in that role. I did it for about 2.5 years. I would like go to Holland and try to find someone to make Pokemon t-shirts in Holland. You know, a lot of their business is like licensing out their brand.
Yeah.
And this was like way before Pokemon Go. This was when Pokemon, everyone, like when I would say where I worked, everyone would be like, oh, is that still going?
Oh, yeah,
And a large part of what they were doing at the time was trying to buy back the rights, because when it was boom, they just sold the rights to everyone. So they actually had no power. In Japan, it was like massively a really controlled business. But in Europe and in America, like, you know, you wanted to like show the Pokemon movie somewhere. Pokemon didn't have the rights to do that. They'd sold it to someone else.
Wow.
There's a bit of confusion, isn't there? Because like Pokemon Company is not Nintendo, is it? It's like a different company.
So Pokemon started. It was like a kind of 3-way joint venture. So it actually originally started as a video game produced by Nintendo, and then but the developer was a company called Game Freak. I think they're based in Shimokitazawa. I don't know where they're based now. But the Pokemon actual company is based in this building.
Oh, really?
No way.
But the development's elsewhere. And then it was trading cards, and Game Freak did the trading cards as well. And then there's a TV and manga company. So it's a big publishing house.
Oh, okay.
So those three. After a while, when it boomed, then it was getting too big for just like these like 3 different companies to kind of manage and I guess like arranging meetings. They all put like I don't know. Third in each, and then create the Pokemon Company. So it's a 3-way venture.
Okay.
But what's even more confusing is Niantic, who made Pokemon Go, is absolutely nothing to do with that.
Huh.
Okay.
So that was
Weird.
just a license deal.
Oh, wow.
So I think to the degree when Pokemon Go came out and everyone was like, oh, let's buy Nintendo shares, Nintendo actually came out and said, yeah, don't bother.
It wasn't us.
Wow. That sucks. Wow.
I don't know what the deal is, but like...
Did they just like not anticipate the popularity of that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It gave them a big kick in the pants, didn't it?
Oh, they must be loving it. But I'm like, if it's, you know, a typical licensing deal for a t-shirt is, you know, if it's like let's say a $10 t-shirt, you know, Pokemon will get 10% off the kind of wholesale price. So like 10% off $4.
Right.
So I don't know if there's the same terrible deals for like Pokemon Go, but like, are they just getting 30% of the
of all
fees?
that.
So Pokemon, then I went to Rockstar Games, worked for them for the UK for a little bit, and then got transferred to Singapore, and then got transferred here.
Okay.
So you got transferred
we're
to
up to
Singapore,
date.
and you're still doing Rockstar Games, and you're like, I need kind of a Singapore exit.
Yeah, just 5. Yeah, do you know, I love Singapore, so I don't want to say 5 years is too much. I don't want to say that. But actually, I was living with my brother. He was going back to the UK, and I was like, okay, Singapore's expensive. I don't want to like live with random people anymore. And
that's a long time, 5 years in Singapore.
Actually, that one apartment is probably the longest I've lived anywhere outside of my, you know, the house I grew up in.
Yeah. So did you get into stand-up comedy in Singapore, or was that before that?
Singapore.
Singapore, okay. So tell us how you got into comedy.
Yeah, tell us that story.
So I just went to a show once. And then the next day I had what we called a demo. So it was like kind of like a game presentation for a journalist as well. Max Payne 3. Okay. And the guy comes in. It was like GQ, I want to say. It was like that kind of men's magazine to do a feature on video games, and with Max Payne being at the forefront. And I was like, I know that guy. And it was the comedian from the night before.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I thought you were really funny. And then we started talking. And that was when it started. That was interesting. And at the time, I also was writing science fiction comics for a publisher in the UK.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know, I kind of I was looking for that creative outlet.
Yeah.
I started doing some open mics. I don't know what my initial goal was per se, but initially I was terrible, by the way, terrible.
In Singapore. In the beginning.
I couldn't work out why. I couldn't work out why I was so nervous, actually. Like, I've got to be fine. Because, you know, I'm used to giving presentations. At that point in my career, I was, like, coming to Japan regularly and giving, like, presentations on Grand Theft Auto to, like, 200 journalists. And I was fine. But the second it was me selling myself or selling my jokes, I was, like, melting on stage.
Interesting.
And then my first goal was just to have one good gig that I could invite my friends to. So at the time, I wasn't telling my friends I was doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
But then by the time that gig came around, I was like, okay, I'm in now.
Yeah. It was too late to invite them.
Yeah.
You know, to me, like comedy, it's like the hardest form of performance. It's like there must have been some build up. You must have kind of considered in your in the past before you got to Singapore.
No, actually, and not only that, I'd never really seen comedy. Like, it's not like when you're talking to comedians, they like will be saying, oh, I love that guy, that joke. Or like Dave Chappelle came out recently.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Dave Chappelle.
Wait, really?
Now I do, but not before I did comedy. Like 5 years ago, I'd never heard of Dave Chappelle. I knew maybe Lee and Lee and Herring are British comedians. Like Stuart Lee would be like a favourite, but you know, I've never really gone to a comedy club. So no, it wasn't from that.
So perhaps you just didn't know the kind of horrors that were in front of you.
Yeah, but you say it's hard. I think it's the easiest. You know, one of the reasons I liked about stand-up comedy, like when I do a show on Mondays here, I typically think about what I want to say when I get on the train.
Really?
So I think about, well, it's an open mic. You get 4 minutes. It's low pressure. No one's paying to come in. So I will think, I get on at Meguro, I'll think about what I want to say, and then I'll do it an hour later in Otsuka, up in near Ikebukuro.
Wait, you'll do two of
I'll get on the train at Meguro, think about what jokes I might want to say, and I'll know almost within 2 hours whether or not they worked. And it's like
tight feedback loop.
Yeah, really tight feedback look. And maybe and then I could come away, and that kind of little hits that I was getting really suits whatever I'm after. And so going back to your point, I think it's an easy form of entertainment. Like, literally you just need a mic.
In that sense, yes, technically you don't need much. I was thinking more like in terms of performance, like if you're playing the band and the gig's kind of crap, you can still kind of noodle along and people, you know, you can save face. But if comedy, if it's not funny, people are just like not amused and you're stood there, it's like...
It just all falls back on you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like, I do think a lot of... I think a lot of people want to do stand-up comedy, and the main reason they don't do it is because they think it's really scary. And if I could say one thing, it isn't that bad. Like that fear goes quite quickly.
Yeah, so like hopping back to Singapore, you kind of were bombing, I guess, at the beginning. You were not quite good. So how did you keep going? It wasn't that scary. It wasn't that demoralizing.
I really wanted to be good at it. I really wanted to be good at it. And then you get a little bit of a laugh. And you're like, and it feels so good. And then you're chasing that high.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I know exactly why that went wrong. That was like, if I just say it this way, next week it will work. And then slowly but surely, I actually put a video up, it's largely in Japanese, I've got a lot of videos of all these old sets, essentially me doing the same joke. And it leads up to the point of in Singapore where I'm headlining with the joke and it's working. And then the last part is me doing it in Japanese and it's working.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And you can see like me...
Like how like slightly different iterations of the same content makes it funny or not funny.
Yeah, I know a lot of it was delivery and, you know, some of them you can see how nervous I am.
Yeah.
And then by the end I'm just... Actually, and within that I worked out who I was on stage. I don't know if I know exactly who I am, but I went from this like very kind of TED Talk-ish professor type to someone who's more kind of shouty and... like all that kind of nervousness kind of disappeared. And then and like one thing I realised I was doing all the time was on the... almost like a self-protection but habit, some kind of habit. I was turning away when I do the punchline.
Right. Interesting.
So I wasn't like confident enough, so I'd be like turning away and then that would feeding over. So actually just holding it. Even now I've got a problem. I tend to talk when people are still laughing. So I say a punchline, then I go to the next joke, everyone's laughing and I'm starting the next joke, so it means when I come to the punchline, the next joke, they haven't heard the premise because they were laughing. Just little performance techniques like that. Like when I first started doing comedy, I used to wear like a sports jacket, and then I went through that's what I thought comedians did. And then I went through a crazy like Hawaiian shirt phase. And then you kind of...
You swung the other way.
Yeah, it's kind of like a performance in some ways. And then you start by performing and then slowly you realise you shouldn't... The less performance, the better. And I think the comedians that we all like, even something like Dave Chappelle, he's just like essentially honest. It's like he's saying a joke. It's not even half... Who went to this show in Tokyo?
I wish I could have gone. It was too expensive for me.
Yeah, too expensive. It was a bit like, this sounds harsh. It was barely any jokes. It was just because it was him saying what he wants to say, it was funny. Like if someone else lifted that stuff and tried to do it in their voice, if I tried to do it, it wouldn't be funny. It's like very honest. He's like got such a unique voice. Yeah. And I think all the comedians who are really successful are that. And actually, I shouldn't really talk about it too much, but I'm probably going to do a project with Yoshimoto soon, which is the big Japanese, where they're going to try it in English. And I almost want to get them to stop thinking, oh, what do foreigners find funny? And I want to say, no, what do you find funny? Do that. Yeah. And hopefully if it is funny and you're confident and you believe in it, then it should transcend. Like if you start saying, well, I usually do this, but because they're foreigners, I'm going to talk about sushi. I'm like, everyone's going to find, like, people will be aware that's not true. Yeah. When I mean true, I mean like in some kind of, the essence of it isn't honest to you. And, you know, all the great comedians are just them.
Yeah. Cool.
So I've got a random question. When you first started doing stand-up gigs in Tokyo, did you also do material about the banks closing at weekends, the ATMs closing at weekends, or had you left that behind in
Well, I think I'd left that behind, full stop. But a lot of my material was stuff that I wanted to do before, but couldn't do in Singapore because we don't have the references. And there's like a few of the Japanese language plays. But I did a show on Wednesday in Japanese, and I talked about going to America and how much they like Marie Kondo, which kind of works it started as an English bit, but would work in this kind of Tokyo atmosphere, and then Brexit. Talks about Brexit. Essentially it's the same. So at the end of my time in Singapore, there was a Singapore Comedy Festival, and I was asked to do a half-hour show there, and it was all about learning about British colonialism through living abroad, and like how we maybe don't know stuff about what happened in the past, and how embarrassing it is going to like the Singapore National Museum and seeing some of the terrible things that happened. And then then the kind of general punchline of the whole half hour is, how important it is to be a good foreigner when you're abroad and learn, and like, you're not necessarily, even in Tokyo, when let's say we cross road a litter, people are looking at us and thinking, you're not a bad person. All foreigners are bad. So you've got a level of responsibility. And then within that, at the last punchline, then I did the worst thing on I kicked a baby, which actually happened. Like, I was like, and it's like a busy. I kind of put it on a train now. I've changed the joke to a train. But what actually happened was on an escalator.
Okay.
Where I was like going down, and I was on my phone, and I just ploughed through a little baby,
Oh my God.
a little toddler, and how like in that moment I was like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing that could happen. And I blew loads of callbacks. Like, half those callbacks don't work in Japanese because it's related to like Sir Stamford Raffles, who's like the founder of Singapore, and like William Farquhar, who was like the head of the military when we took over. Like that level of detail I wouldn't put in.
Okay.
But then equally, I do a joke in Japanese now when I do it about how I kicked the baby and then picked it up in 3 seconds. 3 second rule is fine. And that works here because there's something called the 3 second rule here. Or Sambyoru. And so I kind of, the heart's the same, but I've just kind of tried, like I'm not going to talk about Sir William Farquhar. Like that would not work in a Japanese audience.
Yeah.
But in Singapore, he's a big historical figure.
But you're one of those baby kicking foreigners.
Yeah. Everyone thinks all foreigners. The thing is, everyone's like, you didn't really do that. I've done it like 3 times. Like, where
You've kicked 3 different babies.
I've done it in Tokyo
Like
now, where I'm
out
like,
for them?
like when you're like running for
them?
the train. Like I'm running for the train. I need to make it. I just jump on and then like look down and like smash like it's not like it sounds like I kick the baby. It's more like I just knock him over.
I feel like you make this sound like it's a universal problem, but I don't know if anyone else has.
I've never kicked a baby.
No, it's happened like 3 times, twice in Japan.
Yeah. So tell us about Tokyo stand-up, like the kind of the comedy scene and like English language comedy scene in Tokyo. Seems to be
Tell us
really,
the whole story. Like, how did
really
you
thriving.
start this interesting comedy scene? How did it all begin?
So my friend in Singapore was dating the marketing manager at Brewdog Roppongi.
Oh, wow.
So he said, you should talk to, I can't remember her name now, but let's say Mariko. And talked to Mariko. And so I went down and we had a few emails. I said, I'll come down this date. And so I went to a bar in Roppongi, and I talked to the owner, and I was like, I'm here to see Mariko, and he's like, I think she's out at the moment. And after a while she hadn't showed up. I was like, I'm talking about the comedy, you want to do comedy here. And then
Is it 2 dogs or Brewdog?
well, interesting, I went to 2 dogs.
Okay.
So I made a mistake. I went to 2 dogs by mistake, and was just talking to the owner, and I was like doing comedy. He was like matter of factly saying, we've got a mic, and do if you like, I like comedy.
Well, you ran to the wrong place.
I went to the wrong bar. And then about half an hour later, Mariko wrote to me and said, where are you? I'm like, I'm at the bar. And she was like, you're in 2 dogs, aren't you? And so in the end, we did 2 shows. So that's how it started. But then the real that was just me doing a show. And then Hannibal Buress, who's a famous US comic, was on a snowboarding trip with Eric Andre and a few other people. And he went to a show, and the person running most of the shows in Tokyo said no.
Really?
Yeah, said. And there was like an open mic. I'm talking about an open mic in a coffee shop where, no offense to my friends, the level was terrible.
Yeah.
There was no audience. And he said no to, and Hannibal Buress, can I get onto that show? And he was like, no.
Wow.
The line was booked. He said, well, you have to book a month in advance.
Wow.
And so then also we had Hannibal Buress, and then another comedian said, I can't believe this is happening. can we do the Brewdog or Two Dog? And both of them had events on. And then I just quickly tried to scramble around. Someone mentioned Good Heavens Bar in Shimokitazawa. They were up for it. And then we started that. We did that show, and it was great. Then we did another show there with Hannibal Buress. Great. And then
so you did 2 shows with him?
Did just 2 shows. And literally they sold out within about 20 minutes.
Wow.
That's mad, like saying no to Hannibal Buress.
Yeah. Yeah. Diana, it's kind of gone in like, within the community, it's a bit of a legend, but you know, I don't know. Not everyone looks great in that story. Yeah. And then after that, the Paul Davis, who runs Shimokitazawa, was like, "Oh, we should do a monthly show here." And I actually said, "No, we're going to do a weekly show. Wow. There's no point in doing a monthly show because no one's going to get better. Because we end up the same comedians having to do the same jokes because there's no time to perform." And I kind of said, like, stick with us for like a month or 2 doing weekly. The audience will build up. We'll get better. And that show now is into its 3rd year as well.
Cool. And that's an open mic?
Well, it was. But it got to the point where there's too many comedians and too many audience for it to be an open mic. So I was an offshoot of that. We now have, we've got a regular open mic on a Monday in Otsuka, which has got a great little community vibe. So anyone who wants to do comedy, please come up there. And then there's lots of other open mics. So it's so much comedy now. Ever thought about doing comedy?
I have. It's more of a kind of an idea to overcome my stage fright. So, because I mean, the idea terrifies me. So, like, I've kind of thought about it.
It's a good personal challenge for that reason.
Yeah. I'm shaking just thinking about it now.
Like I said, it is nerve-wracking. Definitely the first time, and like I get nervous even like now when I do a big show. And maybe it's even a good thing. You get nervous, so you try harder, or you go more focused. Yeah. But it's not that bad as you think. It really, it kind of frustrates me. I feel there's so many people who want to do it, and we're always looking for new voices. Yeah. And like that idea that they're too scared to do it is stopping them. I'm like, no, it's not that bad.
It does look so intimidating from the audience's perspective, though. Just like that person alone on stage, just like putting themselves out there.
Oh, it's brutal. Actually, sorry, I've taken time. Like when it goes wrong, I'm like, oh god! But it is over in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, has anyone who's been part of Tokyo stand-up, have they gone on to be like pros or like make a career out of it? Or
in my tenure, it's one of the issues we have as a community is that as soon as someone becomes good, they decide to go home to like Chicago or Toronto or LA to try their luck in the real world. So
that's good that you gave them the boost.
That makes me feel happy. And like we recently lost a good comedian to Toronto. And he started here. He started here in Good Heavens and has gone up to the point where he wants to give it a go in a real market. That's good.
And it's just been kind of like this upward climb the whole time.
And now it's getting to the point where not necessarily connected to Stand Up Tokyo, but we got Dave Chappelle coming over, and like the fact that I think there's an image that there's not that many. When I first came here, there was like, okay, one show is all that the audience in Tokyo could sustain, and that's clearly not true. Like you can sell out 1,000 tickets to Dave Chappelle in like 5 minutes. There are and these foreigners are coming. I didn't realize there was comedy in Tokyo. So I think the more the merrier, really.
Is that because of you guys? Do you think the kind of an explosion in these kind of the foreign comedians coming in and doing shows?
It's hard to take credit for Dave Chappelle's success,
but you will.
I think there is a degree. Like it's been a process of raising awareness. There's been a comedy map in Southeast Asia, largely around Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore, where people may be going, let's say, to Australia, but stopping off and doing a show there. And Tokyo was never on that. Yeah. And now people are like, oh, there is comedy in Tokyo. Oh, you can do stuff, and there's an audience.
Yeah, I've kind of seen the difference. I mean, like 3 years ago, there really wasn't much of a comedy scene, and like I take it for granted that it's like a major part of the scene, like the culture in Tokyo now. Yeah. There's comedy, so.
Cool. So, one thing we want to get onto is your sitcom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that must be a crazy story. How on earth did you like start your own NHK sitcom? How'd you get in there?
So the sitcom being Home Sweet Tokyo, which just finished its 2nd season, not just like at the end of last year. Fingers crossed for a 3rd. And so that started. So we started putting some music videos out. So in Japanese. So comedy, stand-up comedy and stand-up comedy, music comedy videos, me and my friend Ruben.
I saw one of those. It was about Giri Choco.
Yes!
Yeah.
Aw.
So when you say put up, you mean YouTube?
YouTube,
right,
yes.
Yeah.
2,000 subscribers and counting. One day we'll be able to use the YouTube space. But anyway, someone in NHK saw that, saw a video, I think it was our unofficial song for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics.
Okay.
And just thought it was funny. And then saw some of the stand-up videos and then came to a stand-up show.
Did you know they were there in the audience?
No, I didn't. And it was a great show. It was a really good show. It was Good Heavens Bar. There was a comedian called Stuart Goldsmith who has a very popular podcast called the Comedians Podcast, where they talk about the method of writing comedy with famous comedians. And
so he's not based in Tokyo?
No, so he's based in the UK.
Okay, but he was coming
over. So he was coming
over,
and I was
cool.
emceeing that show. And not want to brag, I absolutely smashed that show. It was a great show.
Cool.
It was all in, was an amazing show. And afterwards, this producer who's from NHK called Keiko, she'd grown up in Texas, spoke fluent English, and she just said, I always liked stand-up comedy, I always liked sitcoms as well, watching them when I was younger. I'd always wanted to make a English language sitcom. Would you like to have this is my idea, would you like to discuss it? So we went for a coffee and she kind of listed her idea, and I was like, okay. I had no idea I don't know what she really wanted from me, but I said, well, let me just think about it. And then we went next, I pitched my own sitcom, and I'll make it sound very easier than it was. But then she's like, okay, well, let me see what they think of this. And then that was in November. And then by the end of January, we had the green light to do 4 episodes.
What was that original pitch?
My pitch?
Yeah.
So, well, her pitch was just about a foreigner living in Tokyo. And learning about it. So it's NHK World. It has to be educational. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
And it was about like an American guy working here and doing like maybe like business manners type things. Okay. The first thing I did, I changed it to a tall British guy so I could play the lead.
Perfect.
Called Brian instead of his initials are BJ as well. Oh. And then I changed it. I pitched the English things, saying that, I feel like you have to talk about another culture in a funny way and not step over that, making fun of that culture. Let's lower the status of the lead character. So let's give him, take all the power away from him. So we changed it. So instead of him here for work, we flipped it and we said he's married to a Japanese lady in London and they've had to come back to Tokyo at short notice because her mum has died suddenly. So kind of giving it a kind of a slight sad heart to it. So he's sacrificed stuff to come here. Also explaining why he speaks no Japanese and coming it from a first time. So the actual original pitch was more about him and the grandfather or the father-in-law kind of stuck at home. He thought he was a career man in London, had his life mapped out, all of a sudden that's all torn away, so he's at a loss. Equally, the father-in-law is, old school business Japanese dude, thought, retiring to play golf. Yeah. His wife was going to make him bento and dinner every day, and all of a sudden he's lost all of that, and now he's had what he thought was his future changed. He's got a British guy and this little girl in the house. So I thought it'd be like their little adventures together.
So you presumably, it's not a big budget production, is that correct?
I think that would be fair to say.
So what's a day in the life of the production?
Okay, so we'll shoot 4 episodes, 4 20-minute episodes over, let's say, 8 days.
4 episodes in 8 days.
Intense. Yeah, it's quite intense.
Very intense.
So make up at 6, maybe leave the house at 6:30, let's say. Go into makeup, then literally just blast through until 11:30 at night. Yeah. Some nights 2:00.
Wow.
And there's certain pressures. There's light pressures, so any scene that needs light has to be done quickly. We've got 6-year-old girl pressures. Yeah. She has to be offset at 6 p.m.
Is that a legal requirement?
That's a legal requirement. Okay. So it's quick to the degree of we'll do each shot 3 or 4, maybe each shot twice, and then we might do the same scene from 3 different angles. But there are points where I'm like, I didn't get that right, and they're like, no time, we're moving on.
Wow.
So
do they fix it later, or it just stays good?
Yeah, there are bits I'm like, I got that line wrong. And there's scene, there's one scene in the first season where it's the bath episode, and we're talking about showers, and my wife said in Japanese, I like a bath, and I tried to say something a little bit sexy. I was like, well, you didn't mind that shower. We took in Bali together. And then the husband, it's supposed to be a slightly romantic, kind of
moment, and then the husband
comes in.
Or the father walks in.
And have you seen it? Have you seen the episode?
I did, actually.
And there's music over, and I'm talking to my wife, and there's music. The reason there's music there is because he came in late, And I kept talking.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, there was like kind of a random music cue.
Yeah, and because I saw the first cut of it, and I was like, you can't use that because I'm saying like filthy stuff. You can't put that on NHK. I'm like literally just like with my wife against the wall, going, "You didn't mind that showering barley? Husband's supposed to come. Father was supposed to come in. He doesn't come in." So I'm like, you know, that shower we took together, and I bent you over. I'm like, wait, just like, when's he coming in? And in my head, I was like, they're not going to use that. I can't remember if I use those words. But this
so
is no
they
time.
just said, like, at that point, like, oh, we can't do it again, even though he was completely late.
Yeah. Well, I know, because a lot of the stuff they think they can fix in the edit.
Yeah.
And that reason maybe they didn't understand what I was saying, or they thought it was a funny reaction. I'm not in the editing process. And not necessarily that many English speakers are, because the producer's not necessarily in the editing process either.
Interesting.
So is the producer the only bilingual, or they're kind of...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as far as, like, obviously, you know, you shouldn't have to pass the Netflix barrier to be making content.
Yeah.
So, but, like, the Netflix barrier and, you know, what you're creating, like, what is that disparity? Like, from the viewer perspective, we don't really know what's going on that's making such a big jump from, like, getting to Game of Thrones or getting to Netflix level. So from an insider's perspective, like, what is missing on that tight schedule, or what would bump you guys into that?
I listened to a really interesting... This is the Comedian podcast again, the one with Stuart Goldsmith. He interviewed a comedian called Chris Addison just this week, and Chris Addison was a stand-up comedian on Mock the Week and those sorts of shows. He then went to star as the young guy in The Thick of It. Have you seen The Thick of It?
Yeah, excellent.
Which is a British
excellent show.
Political comedy.
The chap with glasses.
Yeah, the chap with glasses. And then he went on to direct a few episodes. He then became one of the lead directors of Veep, which is the American version, essentially the American version of The Thick of It. And now he's just directed his first film with called The Hustle, with Anne Hathaway.
Cool.
And he was talking about the differences between The Thick of It and Veep. And then moving on to like a British TV show. And he was like, okay, the thing about The Thick of It is that it's got no lighting. Yeah. It's called universally lit. You know, literally, we've got cameras. A lot of the edit time is actually spent trying to do the edit and make sure that no other cameraman is shown.
Yeah.
So, whereas in something like Veep, it's HBO, it's got a big budget, and so everything has to be lit. So, and a lot of the time is spent lighting. So, you know, we all get through essentially like 10 pages of script a day on Home Sweet Tokyo, and he was talking how he would do only 4 pages of script. In a film, you're doing a scene a day sometimes, or like just a few scripts. Like you'll be spending the whole time. Yeah. Okay, let's do it from this angle. Then we have to do the same scene again. We'll do it a few times lit with that. Yeah. With just your face, and we'll do a long shot. Like we've got no time for that. We're literally just throwing it all together, and I think it's that sort of thing. And then you can tell, like, you've got time to set all the cameras, set all the focus, get lighting done properly every single time.
So it really is all about lighting primarily.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
And like the way he described it, I think there's more, but he said it's so weird. Like stand up is the easiest type of comedy performance, let's say, and you can do it's super cheap to produce, and over a week you can do the same line iterate, and at the end of the week you've got a great joke.
Sure.
Making a film is the most expensive type of entertainment, and you essentially got one shot. You know, you actually do it. You can't iterate. You do it. You've lit it, and then you're stuck. And then it's up to the editor to make something that works.
Yeah.
Thank you, BJ, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I like TokyoCheapo very much.
Awesome.
So I guess you're going to subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first episode very much. Was it Alvin Chung?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and everyone else, don't forget to subscribe and give us a nice rating on the iTunes app.
What would you like to plug? Have you got?
Can I plug something?
Sorry.
Oh, can I? So if you are interested in Tokyo comedy, go to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Stand Up Tokyo. Everything's under Stand Up Tokyo. All the shows are listed there. And if you want to see some of the videos that I've been talking about, go to my YouTube channel, which is Okomediyaki.
Okomediyaki. Okomediyaki. Okay.
As in Okonomiyaki.
We'll put it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. You guys can check it out.
Thank you.
Cool.
So like Chris said, please give us a rating and subscribe if you like us. And we'd love to hear from you also. So you can now reach out via our email address, new thing. So podcast@TokyoCheapo.com. We'd love to hear any shout outs.
So episodes.
As long as they're nice.
Every 2 weeks. coming out on Mondays.
Yes.
So
Hit all the points.
tune in.
Good work.
Excellent.
All right.
Splendid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.